G'day! Stu from UAV Futures here, and today we're going to be checking this out. Now, let's see how observant you are. Quick little quadcopter quiz. What frame do you think this is? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you know what? It's not actually the Alien, no. So I know this looks like the Alien from Impulse RC, but this is actually a clone. This is the Martian 2 from Banggood. And I've been getting a lot of messages from people, and they're asking about, are these frames any good and how do they hold up compared to the real thing? And I think value for money, this thing was only like 40 bucks. So I got this one, I bought this one from Banggood. So what we're going to do, we're going to be sticking it on the bench and sort of giving it a bit of a rundown and checking it out in this part 1 of the review. And then in part 2, we'll build it up and give it a fly. Anyway, enough rambling from me, let's get started. Alrighty, so it comes in, as you can see here, it's the Martian 2, 220, lots of 2s in there. Let's open it up, comes in this little box, so we'll put everything out. And here it is all laid out, and it feels a little bit, this is very familiar to when, this is pretty much how my channel first started, was just looking at some bare bones frames. So it's pretty cool to be back looking at a frame, because it's been a little while. But what we have here, we've got our, just a quick overview, we've got 4 arms, our base plate, our top plate. Just here we've got a little PDB. This is a little sort of protective cover, and I'll talk about this as well. I'll talk about all this in details, but this goes over your naves or your flight controller. Right here, I guess we've got a bit of a brace plate that holds the arms in place. Keeping with the rest of the carbon, we have a little FPV camera mount, because it's got some clever designs when it slides in just here in the FPV sort of camera side of things. And then we've got this little back part which clips on the back of the top plate, just to offer a little bit of strength there. And it also comes with some pretty cool, actually, some little anodized purple standoffs. I really like that. And then we've got all our hardware, so our nuts and bolts and screws and standoffs. Cool how it comes actually with an XT60 and then 4 little foam feet. But anyway, let's jump right in and talk about this base plate. Rightio, so here's the base plate, and that is coming, just too long. We'll have to see how long that actually is. I'll have to get a ruler, excuse me. Alright, and it is coming in at about 171 millimeters long. And one really cool thing, just speaking of that length, once the arms are actually on here, the nose is actually shorter than where the arms are. So I think that's really important, because that way when you have a crash, you're going to be protecting your camera and this part of the frame, and a lot of the impact's going to be going onto the much thicker arms. So that's one cool little revision about the Martian 2. Now, one of the big reasons I chose this one over the Martian 1 is this one actually has a 2 millimeter bottom plate, so very nice and thick there, so we shouldn't be having too many issues whatsoever. If you look in the middle, we have a ton of little cutouts and some little sort of structural places. So we've got 1, 2, 3 arms, 3 holes, and they're running in these sort of patterns right here, and pretty much that is what is going to be used to lock the arms into place, like that. But also these holes here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, they're going to be the same size, so you can put your flight controller directly onto here. Now, of course, you've got your 8 standoff holes around the outside, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And other than that, I guess you've just got some little cutouts, I guess, to reduce the weight of this thing. What I do like actually is how there is so much carbon in this middle part just here, so it should be really, really strong. And another thing, if you look at this frame, these are all gentle curves, so there is no sharp points or any high parts where the stress is going to sort of cause the carbon to split. It's hopefully going to distribute all the forces across here, so there's going to be no real fracture points in this bottom plate. Moving along, and I guess we'll look at the top plate now, since we've looked at the bottom plate. You can see that's going to fit very nicely on here. And what I think is kind of cool with this design, and I know this is pretty much a clone of the Impulse RC Alien, but the top plate is a significantly different to the bottom plate. So when you're looking at it here, you can see there is a lot more cutouts. It looks like it's going to be a lot lighter, and it's also a bit thinner. I think this one's 1.5, or is it 1? Oh yeah, 1.5 millimeters right there. So a little bit thinner, but that's okay, because in my experience, I find that things that tend to break are going to be the bottom plate or the arms. And something that's pretty cool at the back here, of course, you've got your little pigtail holder if you want to use a pigtail, but you also get one of these. Now, a lot of people, when they have crashes, they do break the back of their top plate up here. So what they have done, you've got this little sort of adapter right here, and this is just to strengthen it. You can screw this down sort of to make your carbon even thicker. So how much that makes that with that back plate on, that's 3 millimeters there at the back. So a super strong back end of the top plate. Rightio, now moving on to the star of the show, and I think that's kind of the reason why I went with this one. I I guess, for my budget frame, because this thing has some 4mm arms. So let's just clarify. Yep, so we're coming in at 4mm there. So that means if you break one of these things, you're having a pretty bad day, because you're going to have to be going pretty fast or having a lot of mass. If you look at them, they're made for 1806 and 22 size motors. But one thing to note, once this is in here, all the impact that goes into this frame, into this arm, it might stop the arm from breaking, but that is going to put a lot of pressure. So that force has to go somewhere, so it might be snapping the bottom plate. That's why I was really happy with this one, because it's got the 2mm bottom plate. You can see here, they've got some motor protection, so when your motor's on here on the outside, you've got this little part here as well. And if you wanted to be fancy, I guess you could run your motor wires down the outside, sort of like in reverse, and have your motor wires coming out here and down the bottom of your arms if you wanted that super clean looking build. Again, it's got these 3 holes right here, and that's simply where it's going to screw into the bottom plate, just like that. All 4 of the arms, and they actually sort of work together. You can see the cut in the arms to hold each other in place. So once you screw that in, this arm is actually going to be pressing against this arm, and that they're sort of all going to be holding that force together. So it's going to spread and distribute the force of a crash evenly amongst all the arms. Now, the last little bit of the carbon right here, actually there's 2 last bits of carbon. So we've got, I'm actually not 100% sure what the use of this is. I think it's to put over the top of your PDB, and sort of you can stack your flight controller on it. But it's made out of carbon fiber, and that's conductive, so I don't think I'm going to be using that. Some people might have some other uses for it, but I guess I'm just worried about things shorting out on here, and I don't want to have any of those possibilities around my build. And the other cool part, which we have just here in terms of the carbon, these are your 2 FPV mounts, and they're going to go in your camera in your frame like this. I think they should slot in there. Yep, that's one. Just making sure I'm getting this around the right way. And then that's another. And then you have a little FPV mount, which I can't seem to find. 1 second. And then you have this little FPV mount, which screws directly onto the back of your camera, and then you can sit that in an angle, because it actually just sits in here, and these little tabs just here lock into these little slits, and that'll keep your camera in place. I'm looking at this now, I'm realizing I've got it in back to front, but hopefully you can see that in there. Those little slits just simply lock your camera into place. Which is going to be kind of handy for me, because a lot of the time I find after every hard sort of landing or crash, I have to go and check that my camera angle is facing the right way. So it's nice to see that it's going to be locked in, but it will make changing the angle a little bit more difficult. I think I'm just going to put it on max tilt straight away, actually. So we'll see how that goes. Now, this part's not carbon. This part is fiberglass, and I'm pretty sure that's because of the built-in PDB, and we need something that's not conductive. And what this is, this will actually sandwich your arms. If I put them on here, let's put them on 1, 2, 3, making sure I'm getting them around the right way. That one goes that way. They're only going to go on one way. So once your arms are in here, you're then going to sandwich them in place with this little plate just here, and that's going to hold it tight. And the reason that's not carbon is because then that is going to be holding in on your PDB on the top. So that's how you're going to be sandwiching it in. And now that's really interesting. This thing is, let's see how thick this is. That's coming in at about 1mm thick. And then we've also got our PDB, which is coming in about 1.5mm thick. But let's talk about this PDB, because I think that's kind of important as well. Now the PDB, I don't think I actually like it. Now what I do wish is they just gave me a thicker one of these, because I plan to be using my own PDB anyway, so I'm not 100% sure. I want to put one in that's got like a lap timing system in there, a red rotor one, so I'm not 100% sure how I feel about putting this on. What I had originally planned was just putting this on the top like that, but after looking at this, I don't think that's going to be strong enough in a crash, so it might actually need this sort of reinforcement from having this PDB on here. And I don't like any frames that use a PDB as sort of a structural design, so that's a little bit of a negative in terms of I guess my considerations when flying this. What I do like is how it's got the XT60 connector on the outside right here, so I'll show you how that goes in. So that will simply go in right here, and I gotta say that's the strangest XT60 I've ever seen. Look at the little tabs on there, so I wonder what's going on with that. And here's a little personal tip: if you're going to be building one of these, most people just stick them in and they make sure you get them around the right way like that. But if your battery comes flying off, this is what's going to happen. It's going to rip out of here, and if this is stuck or hard stuck inside just here, you can rip out this part of the XT60, so your XT60 will be wrecked. And it is really, really hard to desolder these if you don't know what you're doing, because you've got to heat them both up at the same time, take them off. So my little tip would be, I'm probably going to build a little bit of an extension and just have a little bit of wire between the two so I can desolder it one at a time if I need to, and have that little bit of flexibility or give if I do have a bad crash when my battery gets jettisoned. But let's keep looking, let's move on. Enough of the negative, Stuart. Who crashes anyway? Alrighty, so we've got, now this is something I really do like, so we've got our little standoffs here. You've got two types. You've got some tiny little ones that are going to be used with your flight controller stack, and then we also have these purple anodized longer ones right here, which you've got 8 of, and they look pretty good actually. I've got to say I really like the color, and they're coming in. Let's zero this. Let's see how thick these standoffs are at about 5.5 millimeters thick, so that should be plenty strong enough when we put it inside our frame. And then the only other thing we have is some little feet right here. Now traditionally, I hate feet on multi-rotors. I think they're a waste of time, especially on a racing one. In the past, what I have seen is there used to be like a little hole in the arm and people would screw some little feet in, some little standoffs like that, and that is how the craft sort of would be landing, and I used to think that was a terrible idea, putting a huge amount of stress on the arm in a crash. But we've got some of these. Now, I'm actually considering I might be putting these on. They're super light. If they get ripped off, they get ripped off. It's not going to cause too much damage to the craft or put too much stress on anything. So I actually think I'm going to give these little feet a go. So I'm pretty excited about that, actually. Simple things. Anyway, let's put this together and have a bit of a rough idea of what it looks like. Rightio, so here it is, and let me just tell you, this was an absolute mission. This probably, no joke, this probably took me 1 hour to get it this far. This is something I'm used to, I guess. I've been reviewing a lot of premium frames in the past, so this is the first real one since the ZMR that I've gone back and got like a Chinese clone. Well, actually, I had the Dubai one, but anyway, I really noticed it on this one because it was actually pretty difficult to put together because these arms right here, they didn't line up perfectly, and it was just an absolute nightmare trying to get this plate sandwiched on here and holding everything together because everything was out of line. I really did have to force some things, so that was one thing I definitely did notice, and it's probably extra apparent because I know that Impulse RC, who makes the Alien, their frames are meant to be impeccable quality, so there's probably a huge difference there actually between this budget frame and the quality or the cuttings of the Alien versus the Martian. Right, so let's see how much it weighs. Now let's got my little scales here, let's turn these on. And so just like that, it's 146 grams. I haven't put this weird triangle back protector thing on the back, so I'm not 100% sure what that is, but with that it's 148. And then I guess I forgot to put the little cameraman in there, so about 150 grams, give or take a few grams when you're building it. Oh, and we should probably throw the, let's see, put the XT60 on. There we go. Okay, so 154 grams with the XT60. So there it is. There's my little quick review of the Martian 2. I gotta stop saying Alien because I keep thinking that in my mind. So there's my review of the Martian 2 from Banggood, and I gotta say, for the money, I think it's pretty decent. There is some quality control issues, and I really did have a bit of a difficult time putting it in here and strapping this all down, so that was a little bit tight with some of the cutoffs and the holes weren't lined up properly. But other than that, I think it's just awesome value, really. So what we're going to do in part 2, I'm going to be building it up and we're going to be taking it out and flying it around and seeing just how well it goes. Anyway, subscribe for more FPV related content, and as always, happy flying!